On today's show, the Mavericks have had several bad losses and letdown losses, but don't ask Jason Kidd.
You gotta ask them. I'm just a coach.
How much is Jason Kidd to blame for those losses? And should the Mavericks make a huge trade or just make one trade to try and move them forward? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review, like the video, and comment anything below. Let us know, is Jason Kidd to blame for the Mavs' bad 5 losses this season, or is it something else? Let me know there's something else. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself with the purchase of a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. Use that code Locked On to get $20 off your order. That's JASEmedical.com. And joining me from 105.3 The Fan, lucky that he doesn't have to be on the radio tomorrow. What you got for me, Reggie Adetula?
I only just realized it as you were doing your reads is leading in that this particular background shirt combo makes it look like I'm doing a bid. And circumstances just came together to make it happen. So I'm going to get ahead of the YouTube comments. Yes, I recognize it too.
He is free. He is a free man. He is not being held against his will. He is out in the open with us in the 18-degree weather outside here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Oh my gosh, it was so cold.
Bro, I was noticing very nice beanie you got there.
You like the locked on beanie? Yeah,
it's nice. I need to get me one.
Yeah. So cold in DFW. Cowboys lose in a terrible way. The Mavericks just lost in a terrible way, and so we're here. We're here to talk about it. It's cold outside, but it's warm here.
I'm in a prison of sports emotion is what I'm in.
Oh my gosh, getting hot in maybe the seat of Jason Kidd, definitely with fans. And so let's talk about Jason Kidd. We'll talk about some of those letdown losses. We'll also talk about if the Mavs should go all in on something. Mark Stein had some reporting over the weekend that says which way the Mavericks are leaning when it comes to a Pascal Siakam type trade. We'll talk about that. You guys voted on some stuff, so I want to talk about that and where the Mavericks should be looking and where they should be putting in their time. And then, if we get to it, that's a lot of stuff. If we get to it, the Mavs secretly have like this elite 3-man team, like this elite 3-man like lineup that they can throw out there, and they haven't used it a lot. When the Mavs are healthy and they get those guys back, what does this Mavs team actually look like? So we'll talk about that and break all that down with Reggie Adetula. All right, Reg. The Mavs have 5 bad losses this season. Overall, the Mavericks have 17 losses total. I think I'm okay with 12 of them. 12 of them I could be like, okay, that's fine. Denver twice, one of them without Kyrie. Minnesota twice, one of them without Luka, one of them without Kyrie. Split those. Clippers, 2 losses, but one of them without Kyrie. OKC, the one without Kyrie, that's the 30-0 run that the Mavs lost. And you're like, okay, I feel good on that.
Right.
Milwaukee, they came down to the wire. It was the tight game. Another Pelicans game. The Kings, Toronto, which was the early in the season, and then Houston without Luka and Kyrie. You're like, all right, that's like 12 losses right there that I say, okay, I can work my way through those. Teams lose games, right? Even the Nuggets have lost 13 games this season. Sure. The difference between where the Mavs are and where like the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Timberwolves are is they've eliminated these type of losses that I'm talking about right here, these bad losses. And here they are. Walk with me.
Okay. December
1st against Memphis without Ja, Marcus Smart, Steven Adams, etc. They have tons of injuries. Luka didn't play, but it was still Kyrie's first chance by himself, and they lose that game. You're like, all right, well. December 27th, Cleveland without Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley. Kyrie was out, but still, and they lose that game. That one's right after Christmas.
Yeah.
January 1st, you lose to Utah by 40 with Luka and Kyrie and Derek Lively.
Yeah.
Now, Utah has played really well, but still, you have Luka, Kyrie, and Lively, and you still lose that game.
Right.
January 9th, Memphis. This is last week. January 9th, Memphis without Ja, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, and more. Marcus Smart goes out halfway through that game.
Yeah.
Luka and Kyrie both played in that game, and you lose. And then this last one from Saturday. New Orleans without Zion, Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Trey Murphy. Luka, Lively, and Exum were all out, but you still had Kyrie and you lose that game. Those are the bad losses I'm talking about. And the difference between like having those losses and not having those losses, the difference between the 7th seed in the West right now and 1, 2, and 3, where we were hoping the Mavericks would be.
Right.
My question is for you as I turn it over to you very fairly.
Okay.
Are those on Jason Kidd, and how much?
Yes, Jason Kidd carries a large amount of blame here. And the way that my brain gets to that answer is thinking back on a lot of these losses, those 5 that you mentioned, a lot of them you can look to effort and energy, and Jason Kidd would say that, right? Like his response is energy, effort, particularly defensive end, those types of things. And then also there's been some circumstances, as you mentioned, where you're missing one player or another. But that comes back to, for me, I think about the way that this offense runs, and it's so much indicated or like predicated on the flow that is developed by whoever is your primary ball handler in that time, whether it's Luka or whether it's Kyrie Irving. And it feels like outside of that, there's not a ton, like obviously there is some plays, but like there's not a ton of structure outside of that in the way that they want to play offensively, right? And both of those things seem to coincide. And tell me if you think I'm wrong in this, because it feels like what Jason Kidd has tried to do in order to like juice the pace is let the offense and everything be a lot more free flowing, not very much like structured things that you have there. And so if it's not going well, it feels like all of the energy plummets. And also it feels like Jason Kidd now comes from a place where he's like, and me as the coach, I give you this freedom. You guys need to figure out some of these things on your own. And it harkens to kind of something that we see with Doc Rivers when he's coaching, where he likes letting his players figure it out. But the problem
Jackson
is,
did that forever.
Yes. The problem with letting your players figure it out is that if they don't, you lose these things along the way, like these 5 games. And so I get it if he's like, I've been speaking and I've been saying things and they're not figuring it out. But ultimately, the responsibility is on the head coach for them to figure it out. And so the circumstances that you've created have created this vacuum where they're not giving you that consistent energy. And now I come back to you with, okay, well, what is your next response? Because at this point, it seems like to this day, he's still giving you the they've got to figure it out rhetoric. And that's not going to cut it, particularly if you want to be on a high level. I don't think so, at least.
If you're a parent and there's certain chores that you want children to do in your house, right? And you give them some kind of incentive and you set it down for them, where my mom would try all these different kinds of things. She'd be like, all right, you make your bed, you get a quarter, like every time. And so eventually, like if you do it for weeks, like it builds up and eventually like you make it like, and it was a bunch of different other things. And so you do that. The problem is, what if they don't go by the incentive?
Right.
What if, and you're like, I don't want to discipline you in order to get you to do that. I want you to figure it out yourself. And I want you to take the incentive and get to it and get to this, right? And get to the action and get to the thing that I want you to get to.
Sure.
If they don't get there though, the problem is, then what do? What's your second gear? What's your second action then? If the team hold on, let me go back to my analogy. If the kids don't do the chores that you want them to do, right?
We're talking about children, not basketball teams.
That's right. And I'm talking about parents and not Jason Kidd, even though he is one. What happens then? And that's where we are with these losses for the Mavericks. If you give the players all that freedom, and he is, I've said this analogy several times. One of the problems Jason Kidd had with Rick Carlisle is that he was calling too many plays and being too like, he would micromanage everything. Rick Carlisle micromanage? I never. He would micromanage everything. Rick Carlisle gave it over to Jason Kidd, who was like almost his same age at that time when Kidd was with the Mavericks. He gave it over to Jason Kidd, played a little bit more free flowing. The Mavericks went and won a title. And so now Jason Kidd comes into the Mavericks and he's like, all right, I'm going to let you guys run some stuff. I've got Luka freaking Doncic. I'm just going to let him and Kyrie Irving, I'm going to let those guys run stuff.
Right.
That works a lot of the time. And then there's 5 times so far. There's 10 times apparently a season that doesn't work, right? Because we're halfway through the season and it's happened 5 times.
Yeah.
And so math tracks. And so now we're here. Now we're here with these losses because you got to do something else. Every once in a while, you got to like say, all right, the incentive is gone. You've just got to do this because I'm your parent and the bed needs to be made. The toys need to be picked up. And you've got to finish your food at dinner, right? Like it just has to be done at a certain point or else there's consequences.
Right. I didn't imagine that gentle parenting would come up through the course of this here recording. No, I hear you on that. And I think that raises the question then if it has to be an all or nothing proposition, right? Does it have to be I take a stranglehold on the team or they have total autonomy to do this? And I mean, my natural reaction, not being a basketball coach, is there's got to be a spectrum where you can tighten this up a little bit. And tighten might not even be the right framework, but like there's got to be a way for you to add some things to help this out.
The second gear.
You have to be able to have some level of addition here. Otherwise, what is your responsibility? Like at that point, it's like, what are you doing here? If it's just they will figure it out, right? Like what other additions can you make to this process to help these guys out, particularly when you're in situations where you're having to trust other playmakers that are not the elite playmakers that are Luka and Kyrie, and even sometimes without Dante Exum, who you had and you brought in and you're trusted to be a secondary playmaker. Like, okay, so you have to understand who you are asking to do things and make that a reasonable, ask for them, especially because you're asking a whole bunch of dudes who are not particularly defensively inclined to then say, we need you to play really high defense in the instances where you're not scoring. Well, what are you doing to give them those opportunities to be successful? And I think that's where I'm like, yo, Jason Kidd, it does not feel like you have found the right balance here, to say that as nicely as I possibly can. And maybe, just maybe, we tweak the formula a little bit.
What is the formula? What is the formula and when doesn't it work? And how much of this is Jason Kidd's fault? We'll talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode brought to you by Jace Medical. Jace Medical is a place where you can get some peace of mind. We all need peace of mind. If you're sad about the Cowboys right now, if you're sad about how cold it is outside right now, you know that you just need, can I just take that one thing off of my mind? And Jace Medical could be that for you. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if, someone in my family got sick because of a supply chain issue. It's too cold. They can't get the medication in, and I don't have to worry about that because I have a Jace case. This is a Jace case right here. You can hear the medication inside of it. Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, other things. This stuff can happen to anybody. Visit jacemedical.com. Complete your physician encounter, and it will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medication will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. If it's never been more important to be prepared than today, go to jacemedical.com. Use that code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. Jace Medical, Jase medical.com. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you. We've got the Locked On Sports Dallas stream on the Locked On Sports Dallas YouTube channel, as well as on Fire Stick TV and the News On app and all kinds of different places. Check in on that because you may want to check in on our Cowboys guys. They may not be having a good day today.
Yeah.
Also, if you are in the DFW area or have ways to do this, on Wednesday, before the Mavs-Lakers game, about like 6:30 Central Time, your boy will be on WFAA in studio with Joe Trahan, the legend. So check out WFAA. You can watch it online. I believe you can watch it online if you have like a cable package where you can watch WFAA online. So again, check in the WFAA pregame show. It's before the ESPN pregame show or the ABC pregame show that is ESPN, I guess. So again, check it out. Me, Joe Trahan. And I'm not sure who else. A surprise guest, someone else.
Oh.
So we'll see. There you go. We're talking about Jason Kidd. We're talking about the bad losses the Mavericks have had. They've had these 5 bad losses where you just look like, all right, how can the Mavericks lose to the Grizzlies without all these guys twice, the Pelicans without all these guys, the Cavs without all these guys? And to me, it comes down to what you were alluding to earlier and what I was alluding to earlier than that.
Yeah.
The second gear. What's the second option? What are we changing? I think defensively, Jason Kidd doesn't have many of those because he tries to go to something else, and the team is limited in size. They're limited in length. They're limited in a lot of different areas. They're limited by their injuries, sure. Offensively is where I think that they should have more options, and it just doesn't seem like they do. And so that's when they live and die by the 3. And it's been 3 years now, and they're still doing it. They're still living and dying by the 3. But it just doesn't seem like they have that other option unless a player presents themselves. A Kyrie, a Luka gets hot, a Tim Hardaway gets hot, a Jaden Hardy has a game that is much better than what he's had this season. something like that. And the Mavs do that. But when they're left to kind of their own devices and somebody else doesn't step up in that way, where it's just a player taking, initiative, like we were talking about, what do you do? Like, how do you change? Is it just, all right, we throw up our hands and we do that? And then you go to the effort thing where the Mavs are, their defense is predicated on effort and all that. And Jason Kidd was asked about some of these losses after the Pelicans game. And this is what our boy had to say.
Yeah, it's the NBA. You gotta show up every day, and we were in this position against Memphis, and we responded in the next game. We talked about it, but give New Orleans credit. They came out, they're aggressive. They rebounded the ball on the offensive end at a high rate, and we just couldn't compete, or our physicality wasn't there tonight.
Why wasn't it there?
You gotta ask them. I'm just a coach. So, tired bodies. Got guys playing with, a lot of minutes. We're small, and it happens. So we got to learn from it, and we'll move forward.
I'm just the coach, Reggie. It's giving. Hold on. It's giving.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
Yes, this is the problem that Jason Kidd has, because, like, I know what he's going for there, right? It's like, I can't put that physicality within them, right? They have to draw that from within. But as a coach who seems to care at least somewhat about the noise outside of that locker room, that building, stop giving quotes like this to the general public. It doesn't look good. It's such a bad idea. You know how many people are just like, nobody's dying all the damn time? You did that.
Them. I'm just a coach.
And then again, like in a more serious way, like in a more practical way, this does point back to, like, if your only response is, well, you guys got to figure out how to do better. I don't know. Like, I have questions about what happens when we get to the postseason, and the postseason is largely predicated, and we talk about it as like a chess match. You don't have go-tos, you don't have counterpunches, you don't have, you know what I mean? And maybe the idea is we don't want to go too early, but you gotta get something out of your bag soon to make sure that you're in a place where you can go to them. And yeah, that's ultimately the question that keeps coming back to me, is like, what more do you have to offer here? Because I understand you set up an environment, like, this is part of it. This is a large part of it. We talk about, like, Steve Kerr also. I always think back to the time where he had, like, the back issues and he was gone for a while, and we got tricked into thinking Luke Walton might actually be good at coaching, right? He had established a framework that worked so well there, and a culture that the thing kept running without him. And that is a part of coaching, don't get me wrong. But you also need to then be able to tweak that when necessary and take that to another level and add more things in. And so having a framework where Kyrie feels comfortable and happy to contribute, and Luka feels like he's getting his best, and, you're able to have other players step in, that matters. And that's a good thing. I don't want to, not acknowledge that, but you have to be able to elevate. You are supposed to be something that elevates what's happening on the court, because otherwise we can just have a player coach and make this happen.
Kyrie has attempted it in the past when he said about Steve Nash. He said, some nights Steve will be the coach, some nights Kevin will be the coach, some nights I'll be the coach. I mean, he has tried that, and it worked really well for them. Apparently, they won a bunch of games.
Maybe we didn't realize that's what's happening here. That's why Jason Kidd's like, no, it wasn't my night. It wasn't my night to coach.
These losses are on Coach Kyrie. I'm with you. I have not been like killing Jason Kidd all season, right? Like, I haven't come out and done that. Last season, yes, definitely.
Right.
I haven't been doing that because I think largely he's done some of the right things. He's pulled some of the right levers. What's the biggest fan complaint about Jason Kidd and his rotations right now? He's not playing Richaun Holmes. Guys, Richaun Holmes is not changing your life. He would maybe change a couple of plays here or there if he is what everyone thinks that he could be or is, right? He maybe changes a couple plays here or there. That doesn't help you getting beat by 40 to Utah with Luka and Kyrie and Lively playing. That doesn't help you against the Pelicans necessarily last night. Maybe it does. So my thing is with Jason Kidd is, okay, you have set up all those things, right? Luka and Kyrie both like him. That is extremely underrated by fans. Huge. as a asset in his favor, where there's not just anybody that can do that. Rick Carlisle is one of like the greatest coaches in NBA history, right? Regarded by everyone else. Luka didn't get along with him and he was gone. Kyrie has not gotten along with some coaches in the past, right? It's just been Steve Nash, he said he was going to be the coach. Kyrie did. So like, it is underrated that what that aspect of Jason Kidd brings to this team, and he's not going anywhere, right? Like I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I don't think the Mavericks are going to remove him. If they miss the playoffs this year, I think his seat definitely gets hot, and maybe they remove him by the end of the season. Depends how bad it gets. But yeah, if they also right now, the Mavericks, like the front office and Cuban and the Adelsons and whoever, have we've been injured card, right? We're about to talk about a quote unquote elite trio. Luka, Kyrie, and Lively have played 16 games together. They've played 40 total as a team, right? Like they have that card to play. So some of it has been injuries, but
100%.
I want to say that, this is the coach of the Mavericks for as much as we want to complain about it. And so for me, what I want to do is, all right, if he's just going to be the coach of the Mavericks, how can they take it a step further? And so I'm trying to figure out what's lacking and what they need to do. Because I'm not just going to sit here and call for a coaching change, because it's just not going to happen. So I'm not going to waste my breath. I'm not going to waste my breath on it at this point in the season. But coming up, I feel like we've decided nothing. I feel like we've decided nothing so far.
You know what this has been? Therapy. That's what it's been. We've just been getting out the feelings.
Oh, this is just therapy. Coming up, let's talk about a trade, though. Let's talk about, should the Mavericks go all in on a player like Siakam, or should they trade for a single piece like a Dorian Finney-Smith to build on what the Mavericks have right now? Mark Stein reported a little bit on the Mavs' potential with Siakam. I had Jake Fisher on recently. Let's talk about all that and more. Let's do that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds that you can go check out on FanDuel and see what's available. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's not even like a money line or anything, just like a $5 bet. I'm like, freaking anything. Go check out FanDuel, see what's available for you. If you are a sad Cowboys fan, maybe don't go to the NFL tab today. Maybe go to like the NBA tab. Mavs against the Pelicans coming up on Monday. Mavs are a 4-point underdog. All the Pelicans guys are coming back. Luka is not coming back for the Mavs, and so you understand that one. So maybe you take the Pelicans, or maybe you decide that the Mavs just only win every other game, and they have these letdown games, and so you decide to go for the Mavs. So go for it. Either way, again, check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel.com, official partner of the NFL.
He play mate. Sorry.
All right, Reggie, we've been talking a lot about Jason Kidd. I don't want to talk about Jason Kidd anymore. Let's move forward. The Mavericks do need to make a deal. Mark Stein on his show on The Freak this weekend. You can check out his the podcast and his Substack. It's all like must read, subscribe, listen for a Mavs fan. He talked about that the Mavericks are definitely looking for a power forward. That's the natural spot where they need to upgrade at. They've been looking at players. They've been in on Siakam. They've been in on some of these other guys. But he said that they're not making an all-out push for Pascal Siakam. To me, that says they're not getting Pascal Siakam. Because if you don't make an all-out push for him, I don't think you're getting him. I don't think you're going to fall like backwards into trading for Pascal Siakam. So let's just take this into a hypothetical, which is what all trades are. Should the Mavericks go all in on a Siakam, or should they just try to go for one piece like a Dorian Finney-Smith or somebody else like that just will boost what you have right now instead of you bring in Siakam, it changes everything that you do. But a Dorian wouldn't do that. What are your thoughts on which direction they should lean going into the trade deadline?
Yeah, this is a tough. I mean, we've talked about this, headed into the show, and I don't think I've landed on a definitive answer here. I feel like the Siakam one is the most appealing when it comes to just the outside. You talk about the names of it, and he'll give you a lot of that defensive things that you're looking for. But I think it changes a lot of what you're doing, as you mentioned. And he's a rental at this point. There's not a guarantee of that future. And you have your key pieces locked up for a little bit of time, obviously understanding that, a star can blow this thing up whenever they want to blow this thing up. But I think it might actually make more sense, especially within the context of what we're talking about, to actually go for a singular piece. Because as you mentioned, right, like the idea of not having a curveball, so to say, not having other things to throw at it, right? If your starting lineup isn't working, they basically can go to 5 out and that's it, right? Like that's all you have. Having a piece, a combo big, maybe, something like that, can give you a little bit more to play with. And hopefully it's another piece that has like a defensive foundational piece, as opposed to like a defensive piece that's predicated or like works off of somebody else's defensive capability, because you have a lot of people who work off of other people's capability. If you add another piece, even if like, because I know Dorian Finney-Smith ends up being the name that we think about, even if it's not specifically him, but with that framework, we know what Dorian Finney-Smith is going to give you defensively most of the times. And I think what you saw in that Western Conference Finals that they run is that they had a couple of pieces that they knew what they would get out of, and then other people kind of filtered around, and I think that gave you a little bit more opportunities for stability. And so like I'm leaning towards the idea of adding that one piece because I think it gives you more opportunity to feel out what you have. You don't have to figure out so many things, which also like doing in the middle of the season, as we realize with Kyrie, is not an easy task to do. And also I think we all, at least me and you for sure, have looked at this as a gap year of sorts. And so like changing the dynamic entirely, I think shifts the trajectory of where you're going, and that can be good, but that can also be bad, right? Like I think you have to start working towards where you ultimately want to be. And I know that Siakam would be a huge, incredible piece to have. I just don't know what happens if you get to that place you go, oh snap, this is not exactly where we want to be. Because I mean, that's kind of what you did with Kristaps Porzingis, isn't it?
Yeah, they skip steps with that, and you still do it every time because you can get there, but there's not really a right way to build it. They will come. You know, it's like you build the duo, and then the other guys will come around it, or do you build all the other guys and then get the piece like the Raptors did with Kawhi? Like, do you do the finishing piece? Then it's like, you know, who knows?
Right.
I lean with you. I don't think they're going to get Siakam because I don't think they have enough for what the Raptors want. I think they could potentially put in the best package of teams that are willing,
right? Because
right now it seems like there are teams getting scared off by the small market teams like Indiana, Sacramento, are getting scared off by his whole, well, I'm not going to re-sign just anywhere type thing, which is just all leverage ploy. It's what this all is. So maybe the Mavericks have the best could put the best package out there of the teams not scared, right? They ain't scared. The Mavs will trade for everybody and bet on themselves.
Sure.
And do that. They did it with Porzingis. They did it with Kyrie. I feel like they've done it a bunch. And so then I think that they should add another piece because, like you said, I've looked at this season as it's not necessarily a gap year. It's like a building year, right? It's a gap year as far as, are you a title contender? I don't think anybody would look at me and say this team is a title contender, except for Tim Hardaway Jr., who said that on Mark Stein's podcast that I'm referring to earlier.
There are some answers you just got to give.
You're like, what's the goal? Finals? I don't see anything different between this team and the Western Conference Finals team. Okay, I'm with you on that, but I don't know about going to the finals. It could happen, though. You've got Luka, Kyrie, and you can beat good teams.
Right.
But they haven't right now. They also have this rookie center. It gives you an artificial ceiling, basically, right? Where we just haven't seen rookie centers go very far. The last rookie center to be on a team, and the last rookie center to average 25 minutes a game on a team that went above 500 at all, Yao Ming, 2003. So,
are you an otherworldly player? Maybe, just maybe, we can make this happen.
So, you know what I mean? Like you've got this ceiling, and yes, like break the ceiling, break the glass ceiling, and all that of this, but I think that they need to take a little step forward and not try and take a huge step forward to be like, all right, we're going all in right now. The other reason why I think it's one piece is not because they're pirates that are traveling around and trying to like have fun, but because
I was wondering if you would give that. I appreciate that so much.
But because they're gonna have three picks this summer available at free agency, and so I think that you hold back and you wait because I don't think Siakam is the perfect piece. He could be. It sounds like, according to Jake Fisher, who's on our show a couple days ago, it sounds like they're split in the front office as to whether Siakam is the perfect piece or he doesn't really fit at all going forward. So, but to me, I think you do the one smaller trade if you can. Hopefully, he doesn't take a first round pick, and then try for the big swing this summer. Once you have established what is Lively, what are Luka and Kyrie together, who's here to play, did Grant Williams bounce back or did he not? Right? You know what I mean? You've got to figure out a couple of things first.
Yeah, you got a lot of question marks on this team. And I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Seeing if you can give yourself more time to figure out some more of those question marks, turn them into definitive checks or X's. That's a good point. Also, I wonder how much like a big all-in move with the nature of the CBA, which I still have not fully wrapped my arms around. Like, I do wonder what that does to your future and how much that handicaps you going forward.
I've seen this take several times from Mavs media and others where they're like, well, they've got these new owners with the deep pockets. That doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter because even if the owner wants to pay, even if Matt Ishbia wants to pay for what the Suns have right now, do you want to be where the Suns are right now, where you've got 3 dudes and you've got like no real options to try and figure it out, figure out how to add to that, right? And it's going to get worse going forward. If you're in the second apron, meaning you're not in the, you have the cap, the luxury tax, the first apron, and the second apron. Like you are spending out the wazoo, like my dad used to say. He still says that. I don't know why.
It's a great thing.
I don't know why he said use. Yeah. My dad is very much alive.
He used to, but he still does too.
I was gonna say he used to. He also still says it.
Yep.
Probably said it today. You've been spending out the wazoo. Like your draft picks are going to get frozen. There's a bunch of stuff. You can only make certain types of trades. You can't like take in. You can't like not relegate, but you can't like add 2 players together to trade for another. There's so many different restrictions with it. It's not just about can you pay them the amount of money. They literally put these rules in the CBA because of what the Warriors are doing, and now no one could do that. So you've got to find a different competitive advantage now when it comes to that. And so
nothing, Joe Lacob.
So if you think that Luka, Kyrie, and like a Siakam type are it, then yeah, go for it. I don't think that's it though, because I think that third piece still has to be an elite defender, and Siakam is not that. And so that's where I think we land on this.
Look, I'm with you. I think that the more that we talk about it, the more that I feel comfortable with the idea of a smaller piece than, that big time max contract, and, see what that does for you. And if that gives you a little bit more options. And then I think, again, within the context of what we're talking about with Jason Kidd, gives you more data points in figuring out what it is that's happening, what you're doing. So I think it all works in that regard.
They got to do something. They've got to add somebody to this, and you can't let another like moment of opportunity pass you by because you got put so far behind the 8 ball last season, where you just made all these moves that didn't work, and now you're still paying for JaVale McGee, and you traded the first round pick for Christian Wood, and now he's gone for nothing, and you obviously lost Brunson for nothing. Like you just so far behind the 8 ball last season that you've got to keep moving forward every single chance that you get. But here we are. There we are. Go listen to Reggie this week. When are you on the Fan this week?
It's Tuesday through Friday, but listen every day, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. right here or right there on 105 through the Fan. Can you tell I do this frequently?
Turn it on, leave it on, unless you're listening to Locked On Mavs.
That's right. That's right.
Or Isaac on Mavs stuff, I guess.
just add in more exceptions to the
or our friend Kevin Gray wherever he's doing something, or listen.
Just whatever you're doing. If you just happen to have a chance to listen, please do. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.